And Eternized Dragon is giving us another knowledge drop as we're used from him, in that for the PAL version there actually is a difference in the intro length for TASes between German and the other option that you get on PAL. I wouldn't have imagined that.
So currently it looks like we have the runners are about to get started here, and I'm sure Feasel is trying to sync everything up. Bender, let's have a little fun as always. What do you expect the first item will be other than Morphing Ball?
I will guess the same thing I guess every time. I know it is not the statistically likely option, but my guess is on the reserve tank.
Gotcha. I'm gonna always hope for high jump boots, but expect an energy tank.
And we will probably be proven wrong, and it will be Plasma.
So let's see what it's gonna be.
Since it came up in the chat, Gravity Suit is not an option. None of the suits can be in either Green Brinstar nor in Criteria.
Good point, Bender.
The logic of the randomizer specifically excludes that options to make sure that these important progress items need a bit of searching for.
Okay, so it looks like Sloaters is going to be our first player to get the bottom item and make it over to the next one. But Zarby has skipped the minor item for now and sees an energy tank up top. So nothing overly interesting at this point. But we do have one regular missile pack and a power bomb. So let's see what the runners choose to do with those options there.
So Nice is definitely intending to get this energy tank, which is a good idea that early in the game, but he had a bit of a problem with the Ryu, getting the boost up to the item, which is something we've seen a lot. Since it's not an easy trick to do. You have to practice it for quite a bit to get it as consistent as we have seen it Oats do, who pretty much got it on the first or second try. And Oats and Sloaters are already heading back up to Criteria.
Looks like Oats is grabbing the missile pack to the left of the Morphing Ball location, whereas I think Sloaters is now on the right. Is that correct, Bender?
Yes, Lotus should be on the right, and I think he didn't grab the missile pack.
So yeah, he decided not to. He's heading straight up the climb, and now Oats and Goats is heading up, and he will have that extra missile pack.
And Zarby decides to do the same as Oats, and also has the extra missile pack.
So as we mentioned earlier, just one thing to keep in mind, there are 4 different runners, but they're all running the exact same seed. So anything that we see in any of these major item locations and minor item locations should be identical for all runners. Sloater's going to pass on that reserve tank, so you didn't get to have the excitement of a reserve tank pretty early there, Bender.
Yeah, but I have to admit the excitement is only there if the reserve tank is actually among the first 2 items. So I'm not really satisfied with that.
Looks like Oats. Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Oats is also going to probably pass on that reserve tank, but just as Oats and Nice, Zarby also checked for the Old Mother Brain E-Tank, which you can do if you get power bombs early in Blue Brinstar. And Sloaters did not opt to check for that. So Sloaters is currently the only one who hasn't found supers yet.
That's true, and those supers are very powerful. I think we talk every time about how, in particular, that magic number of 30 supers is a great number to, at minimum, try to shoot for as early as possible, because that's what you would need at minimum to kind of handle Ridley fairly easily. So Sloaters did not pick those up. It looks like Oats is now turning around and possibly going to head to the ship. Maybe either to just refill on power bombs, but I'm not sure what else he's going to plan to do here. Maybe he'll go right? We'll see.
Or maybe he's going to check Gauntlet for one of the We know that Gauntlet cannot hold any of the suits, but it might hold a plethora of interesting items otherwise. But it seems Oats just wanted to refill his power bombs.
Yeah, I don't think he would have been able to get in and out of Gauntlet with only the 5 power bombs there. So good call by him to choose not to go over there. I missed what happened to Sloaters, but my assumption is that he might not have had the missiles to get in that first door to the right, and maybe he decided to go down to the bottom first, but he was only rewarded with another E-Tank.
Still that early in the game, an E-Tank is still something that's worth picking up. Because if you happen to not run into too many until you are presented with the option to do a lower Norfair rather early, if you find Varia, for example, and enough supers, yeah, having a bit more than a single E-Tank is certainly welcome.
Absolutely. And sort of interestingly enough, I failed to mention this earlier, but the runners have already found Wave Beam, which should make getting the E-Tank in the big pink room a lot easier. But I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume that at least one runner will forget they have Wave and try to use supers to glitch that gate. But as we see, did you see the excitement, Bender?
I will certainly one-up you on that one and guess that at least 2 of the runners are going to try to super that gate. We've seen it so often happen that runners have Wave Beam and simply forget about it.
Yes, I've done it many times.
I mean, if you have someone who is really good at doing that specific green gate glitch and he's getting it first try, you could maybe expect that that they're not just doing it out of habit, but because they know it's probably faster than climbing up. But we've also seen cases where people have fired 5, 10 or even more supers into the gate despite having Wave.
Correct. And as everybody in chat noticed, they picked up Spring Ball as the next major item, and I know for a fact that's going to make Sloaters happy. That is by far his favorite item, so good for him. Looks like Oats will now make his way down to find that E-Tank, and Sloaters is now going to make his way to the big pink.
This certainly speaks for Sloaters' taste, because as we know, no one has ever disputed that Spring Ball is the single best item in the game.
For my own safety, I'm just going to not say anything to that one. All right, Sloaters is going to be our very first runner up to check to see if he remembers that he has Wave Beam. Let's find out. Very nice. Sloaters remembering he has the Wave Beam. Heading straight down. I know we make a joke about this, but it's incredibly easy to forget that you have Wave Beam. So it's good to see runners be reminded. And now we see the second reserve already out of just like maybe 5 or 6 early items.
Yeah, this is a pretty reserved seed so far. And yeah, we're making jokes about these things. And we have also made jokes in the past about runners that have loads of missiles or super missiles and charge beam. Not just using missiles to... oh, we see high jump boots at the original charge location. That's an interesting early item.
Baby. Oh, baby. That's all I got to say about that.
And I have to agree.
Oh, look at Oats is currently trying to glitch the gate with supers. So we have 1 runner out of 4 so far, accidentally forgetting about Wave.
And he certainly isn't remembering it, because I think that's now the 5th or the 6th super he's shooting at that gate. So it's not about efficiency anymore. He simply has forgotten.
Now he remembers.
Now he remembers. Yes.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I'd mean this in a disrespectful or funny way. I'm not surprised to see at least 1 runner. We might see more. It's just, if you're not used to having Wave at the beginning, which happens very rarely, it's just something that you don't think about. You go into kind of autopilot.
Yes, I was about to say earlier, we've making jokes about runners that have lots of missiles and charge in Tourian, about forgetting that just firing missiles at the Sabotites is an option. But really, the first time I saw someone in that situation, it didn't occur to me either that you could do it, because you simply don't normally do it in any speedruns. It's such a remote possibility. I can laugh with every runner that forgets about this, but I can't laugh about it.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I'd fall prey to the same mistake.
So real quick, just to kind of update everyone on what we're seeing. Sloaters is at the current moment. Remember, all 4 of the runners are not racing against each other. We just have 2 separate matches going on using the same seed. But Sloaters is currently in the lead against Oats. Looks like Nice has a pretty sizable lead over Zarby at the moment. But Sloaters opted to go down, which is obviously always a solid call. At Spazer, he picked up an E-Tank. He did not check X-Ray because he doesn't have any of the requisite items, although again, we did see a few days ago Ponk was able to get the X-Ray item, without any of the progression items, so it can be done. It's just one of those kind of very specific tricks. I don't know if that's something that Sloaters has worked on, but he's going to take care of Cray. He'll check the Varia location and then the E-Tank afterwards and see what he comes up with. And then from there, he'll probably either make a decision to head down to Norfair, or if he doesn't feel comfortable with that, he'll just head straight back up direction.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if we are going to see any route divergence. For now, it doesn't seem like it.
Oh, baby, look at that, Bender.
Oh, Ice Beam. That's a biggie. It opens up the possibility for Suitless Maridia, and it's also an item that every runner wants to have in Tourian for being able to make quick work of the Metroids, because otherwise you have to kill them with 3 power bombs each, and that takes a lot of time, and it's also taxing on your health. You also don't get the multiple drops out of Metroids, just a single one, and it's usually crappy. So that's a big find, but given that it's after Cray, I presume we will see every single runner find Ice Beam.
Yeah, and to Bender's point, there's 3 sort of overall big uses for ice in this in these randomizers. I would say a distant 4th would be the Suitless Maridia. It's definitely needed for that if that occurs. But in addition to that, the runners basically have to have either ice or speed booster to even get through Maridia. Now, technically, it's possible to do some kind of crazy Crystal Flash skip before Botwoon, but that's not a move that most runners know how to do. So you either need ice to do a Metroid clip, or you need speed booster. So if Sloaters never finds speed booster, he's at least good there. The other 2 main things makes Tourian a lot faster because he won't have to power bomb Metroids, and it's a easier, more comfortable Zep skip. So great item.
Yeah, that's a good call about Botwoon. I totally forgot about that one, but it's absolutely correct what you said. You either want ice or speed, or with speed you also want gravity to be able to actually run underwater. And yeah, that's a huge find for that reason alone. What we also haven't seen so far is any kind of route divergence. Oats, Sloaters, and also Zarby have gone to Cray first, and after Sloaters, also Zarby is heading down to Norfair. And I presume we will see Oats do the same thing.
So we're about to see our first hell run here. It's probably going to be a very small one. Sloaters is going to check the ice location. And again, I'm just kind of guessing based on sort of traditional modes of thinking. But my assumption would be that Sloaters would probably, if he does not find Varia up here, that he would probably just go ahead and head up to Rex ship. You can definitely do hell runs in these randomizers, and sometimes it's even required. But a lot of times runners do not want to necessarily do that unless they're forced to. So here he finds speed booster, which is great. If he wanted to, he could bust down the power bomb blocks in the next room and head down to Crocomire if he wanted to do some hell running. But we'll kind of wait and see what he elects to do here.
And it's going to be interesting what he's going for.
Oh, it looks like he's going to do it.
Oh, he's indeed going to Crocomire. Well, given he has 5 E-tanks by now, he certainly has the necessary amount of health to make these hell runs not a long shot to succeed. But assuming he's a pretty well-versed runner, he should be able to actually make this without too much trouble.
Hopefully so. I'm just a little nervous. He's only got 168, but he should have plenty to get across and get the refill here. And looks like he's actually going to skip Croc for now. My assumption would be that when he's done here, that he'll probably head up to Bubble Mountain. But again, you just never know. Everybody runs different routes for different reasons against different opponents. And so, yeah, it looks like he's heading up to Bubble Mountain for some hell running. Let's see what Oats decides to do.
Yeah, Zarby is also about to get his speed booster soon. And Nice is also heading down to Norfair. So far, we haven't seen any route divergence, but now we have. Oats has not gone down to Crocomire, but is about to check the original high jump. And if I got this right, he's going to get an E-tank there. In general, you see a lot of runners first check high jump and then go to the original ice beam location for the simple reason that if you have seen the item at high jump, you can, if you want to, and if it seems like a good idea, directly go to Crocomire from the ice beam without missing the opportunity to check the original high jump.
Great point. So looks like Oats has now collected the items at high jump location, and now that he has speed booster, looks like he will also be heading over. So we're going to get to see 2 different hell runs. Keep in mind that at the moment you never know what's going to happen, but for the moment, since the pathing has been basically identical, Sloaters would be considered to be in the lead over Oats at the moment, but Oats showing up into Bubble Mountain with basically full health, and we'll start the process of trying to find some of these items as quickly as he can. One thing that's going to make this all easier is, again, the high jump boots. Just great to have, allows you to get to a lot of these areas a lot easier.
Especially in the later areas like Lower Norfair and Maridia, you only realize how useful high jump boots are if you see runners do it without high jump boots and having to do lots of tricky wall jumps and facing situations that are really hard to properly handle in terms of movement when they get there without high jump.
That's a great point. I guess both of us can be happy. They found high jump boots and spring ball early, so neither one of us have anything to complain about.
And Sloaters and Oats both by now having 6 E-tanks, so they should be well equipped in terms of health. And it's going to be interesting if either of them is going to try his luck with Croc for maybe Varia or Gravity Suit or whatever interesting items Croc might hold. They certainly both have the skill and the amount of E-tanks to try this.
Indeed.
And both are skipping, or I'm not sure if Oats has seen X-Ray at the Norfair reserve tank location, but Sloaters decides to skip it. This is likely to be not too bad a decision by him, but in case they should find Plasma and Charge before they kill Phantoon, Botwoon or Draygon, they certainly will regret not having picked it up, because in the combination of those 3, you get the microwave, which is able to kill any of these bosses with ease.
Indeed. One thing to point out too is having Wave here in this vicinity, choosing to hell run makes things significantly easier. Because if you ever needed to go back down to Croc, or if you wanted to go down and use the energy refill station, you don't have to worry about accidentally taking too much time trying to glitch that gate right there. So Wave is one of those, it's kind of like a sneaky powerful item for these randomizers, because there's just several spots where having it makes your life significantly easier.
Yeah, I agree. Having to glitch one of those blue gates, it shouldn't be too hard, But if you have a bit of bad luck, you might need a couple of tries, and they're easily without any suits. You might easily lose an E-tank or two, and there's enough situations where losing an additional E-tank is the difference between living or hopefully having saved recently.
Ooh, Zarby unfortunately taking a death there. Luckily, that should be a save at Bubble Mountain, if I'm not mistaken. Sloaters making quick work of Crocomire. Let's see. Ooh, the third reserve tank. Wow. We're only 20 minutes in, and we already have 3 of the 4.
I was about to say, we're certainly running out of reserve tanks, so this only leaves useful items and Spacer up to be found.
After they don't find Varia or Gravity here in Norfair, we're going to find the last reserve tank, I think, at Gravity Spot. That's my official prediction.
That's an interesting prediction. It would certainly warrant calling this seat really, really reserved.
One thing to note, again, most of the people in the chat have watched some of these, and you guys are generally aware, but we're just trying to make everybody as aware of everything as possible. The major item below charge in the waterway requires you to have speed booster. The players did not have speed booster the first time they passed that. So we have seen seeds in the past where, for example, Varia or Gravity. Ooh, speaking of Gravity, excellent find here at the grapple location. But it's possible that a major important item could be down there, and we haven't seen a runner go check. So depending on if anybody takes some risks to go back, we might end up seeing that spot checked, and if not, we'll have to see how that plays out over the course of the match. But Gravity Suit, excellent. Sloaters at this point has the option to now go straight to Maridia and then path up to Phantoon if needed. But obviously Varia can be anywhere in Maridia or the wreck ship, so we'll just have to see what he chooses to do.
It's also interesting to see that at this point, 3 of the 4 runners have chosen to visit Croc. And I guess they will all find Gravity Suit, since it makes no sense to go back just after checking the item in Croc's room. And it's going to be interesting to see if Nice is also going to check Croc. But it's all in all, there's really little route divergence so far.
Yeah, I'm actually a bit surprised. Basically, what I said earlier turned out to not be true at all. I mentioned the fact that a lot of times runners will opt not to hell run if they don't have to. So a lot of times you'll see players go, once they don't find Varia after killing Cray, sometimes they'll path straight up to wreck ship. But we didn't see a single player opt to do that here. I'm not saying it would have been a better choice by any means, but it's just sometimes people are running for different levels of comfort, and hell running is not necessarily the most comfortable thing for all runners. So, but every single person here went the same way, so we have some idea of who's ahead and behind, because there's really no confusion about how to compare since they all went the same way.
And Zarby picking up his Gravity Suit. And yeah, it's not just that they all went to Norfair after Crate. They all decided to not just check Bubble Mountain, but also check Crocomire. That's really uncommon.
Yeah, so as we see here, I was talking about earlier that probably the most optimal path for Sloaters would be to go to Maridia. And now he's about to check Mama Turtle, another E-tank. One interesting thing, and again, some of the better players could probably correct me on this, but my assumption would be that if Varia happened to have been at Mama Turtle, that the correct decision would have been to immediately turn around, go back down to Norfair, try to knock out lower Norfair, and then on your way back up, do Maridia, and then wreck ship in that order. I've had that happen to me a couple times, but he didn't find it, so my assumption would be that now Sloaters will commit to basically, the full Maridia attempt here.
Yeah, thinking about the the implications for the route, if it happens what you just said, I think I agree, because if you're going back down to Lower Norfair from this point, it should be faster than going back later.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's not necessarily true, or at least I'm not sure if that would be true if you would find Varia after Botwoon.
Correct. Yeah, I think the only way it would be faster is if you found it at Mama Turtle, because it's still close to the Maridia entrance. But I think every other spot you would just be kind of stuck on your way.
And Sloaters making quick work of Botwoon. At this point, a little reminder: you can easily get soft locked at Botwoon if you do not have Charge Beam, since Botwoon is one of the. And what do we have here? Spacer after Botwoon. Not too important, but also not a bad item if you do not have Plasma.
Absolutely. Crab Beam. It's not exactly what you want, but it's certainly not bad.
It's better than a reserve tank for sure.
I agree with you on that one for sure.
Yeah, but it's easy to softlock on Botwoon since he is, just like Ridley, one of the bosses that you have no option to farm any of his shots or anything. And if you do not have Charge Beam, and none of our runners has found Charge Beam yet, and you run out of ammo, you're basically just left to run into Botwoon and die or wait indefinitely as the only options you have. And it was really heartbreaking. We saw Screwattack fall prey to misremembering the items that he had. He actually thought he would have Charge Beam, and he went into a Botwoon fight with very, very low ammunition, and that basically cost him his run in the third round and put him out of the tournament. Very, very heartbreaking, but it can easily happen.
That is true. One thing to keep in mind that we're going to keep an eye on is that, as Bender pointed out, we haven't found Charge yet. And so depending on where Charge is and how much, like if it's in the way in the next, 10, 15 minutes or whatever, that's one thing. But if it's in a location that they don't necessarily want to backtrack for, they're going to have to start collecting more minor items. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go forward. Sloaters trying to finish up Draygon here. Looks like Oats has probably made up a little bit of time, but I think Oats did not grab Spacer. All right, Sloaters now taking down Draygon, which is good to see. Glad he didn't die right there. I've actually, in a randomizer, once died by taking over 600, it was like over 6 E-tanks worth of damage from chain damage. So glad to see that neither he nor Oats got in that position. But Oats has now made up some significant time. The only difference between them at this current moment is that Sloaters has Spacer and Oats does not.
Yeah, that is certainly a close race. And while Zarby is a bit ahead of Nice, we can see that Nice is also taking the route through Crocomire, and he is also going to get his gravity suit pretty soon. So all 4 runners so far have taken the same route.
I think Oats was just trying to infinite bomb jump out to use the blue suit for reverse halfie, but then, this is my assumption, but then remembered that he did not have it. So I don't know if he ended up being successful with the spike suit or not. I don't think he was. No, he wasn't. So now he's on his way out. So Sloaters gets a little bit more of a lead. It looked like Sloaters almost went into autopilot towards Plasma there, but then opted afterwards and chose not to do it. Okay, Zarby is now fighting Cray. I thought earlier that he had skipped Cray. So it's kind of easy to get confused because he went in towards Cray, but then came back out. So he doesn't currently have Ice Beam or a few other things. So he still should be ahead. Well, I guess it's hard to tell. I'm not exactly sure who's ahead between Zarby and Nice at the moment, but I guess we'll find out soon enough.
From what I've watched, Zarby should be a good bit ahead, despite not having killed Cray yet.
Okay, Sloaters checking Sandpit. Looks like Oats is not going to do that. Sloaters will be rewarded with Screwattack, which I feel like I say this every time I do commentary. Screwattack is definitely not a mandatory item at all. But if you have it, it makes Lower Norfair immensely easier. I would say that Lower Norfair is basically the prime location for taking advantage of Screwattack. So the fact that he will have that and Oats will not doesn't mean that, sloaters will go significantly faster necessarily, but it certainly will make things a lot safer. Looks like Oats is now pathing up to the wrecked ship. We'll see what Sloaters elects to do, considering the fact that he will be coming out on the bottom. My assumption is that he's going to, even though he's coming out on the bottom, my assumption would be that he's still probably going to try to make his way back up.
I totally agree about Screwattack. The question is now if Oats is going to be able to do Lower Norfair with less of a slowdown than Sloaters took to collecting Screwattack, which in the end it comes down to finishing the game first. But I certainly agree about Screwattack in Lower Norfair also giving you a bit of peace of mind, since you do not have to worry about any of those key hunters. And the key hunters in Lower Norfair they really hurt you.
Absolutely.
And they're also if you only really have the option to evade them unless you find plasma and charge beam, because they are also absolute bullet sponges. You can fire supers in them like crazy.
Yeah, and Oats is now, I kind of want to make a point. I mentioned earlier, before everybody started, that basically Oats and Behemoth and Zost were considered to be, in our current time, basically our three probably most elite runners. And even though Oats, I can't speak for him, but I don't necessarily know how much randomizer experience he has. I know it's not zero, but I don't know if he's sitting around practicing randomizers. But there are still going to be moments where no matter who Oats or Zost or Behemoth could potentially be, matched up against in a randomizer, there are just going to be moments where they're going to be faster because of their movement alone. And I think we just saw Oats get to Phantoon like incredibly quickly based on his overall skill level. So these randomizers do have a way of sort of, I'm not sure what the term would be correct here, like sort of evening out some of those or mitigating some of those abilities with pure movement, but there are still moments where that definitely shines.
Yeah, I guess if you give Oats the ability to do any part of his randomizer run along the new any percent route, you'll have a really, really hard time keeping up with that guy, because he holds the any percent world record for a reason. Yeah. And that's just he doesn't even have to think about it. It's just muscle memory. And there's unless you're Zost or Behemoth, you're probably not going to keep up.
Exactly.
And at this point, Oats has the time advantage of basically the entire Phantoon fight. And if I got this, if I do remember this correctly, the Phantoon patterns in these randomizers are actually randomized but consistent for a given seed. So we should Sloaters see Sloaters get the same patterns, unless he takes an additional round than oatsngoats, and hence not losing time due to just luck.
Yeah, and to point a few things out, Oats found bombs. We're going to hopefully see 4 different major items here. You mentioned Phantoon's patterns being, they're randomized, but it's per seed, so every runner should get the same patterns, which would make it more fair. And then I saw somebody with a Kappa in chat mention Cot Power. We definitely agree. We talked at the beginning before they got started about how Cot is definitely one of the best players in the world, but currently not actively running consistently. So... And I, as pointed out too, I don't think Behemoth is in this tournament. But generally speaking, go ahead.
Yeah, as we've been just told by Tutel in the chat, and if it comes to randomizer logic for this tournament, you should believe this man, because he has access to the source code and mostly written it. He told us that what I just said about Phantoon patterns being the same for each runner is total bullshit. So I'm sorry.
I think Oats is forgetting that he has gravity at the moment. I'm pretty sure he could just take... There we go. Only an energy tank over there at the energy tank location after the spike room. So now we have 2 more major items to check, but both players should be able without issue to get to both of them since they have speed booster. I'm sure both of them are hoping to find Varia in one of those locations. If not, that means that Varia will either be at X-Ray, at Waterway, or potentially at Plasma or Shack Tool, because neither one of those 2 items were checked. We know what was at Sandpit because Sloaters ended up getting Screwattack, but we're not aware of those final 2 item locations in Maridia, and to be honest, most people don't check those unless absolutely forced to. So they'll be hoping for Varia in these last 2 spots in Wreck Ship. If not, they're going to have to start the...
And if I'm not mistaken, we did not yet see the Thorf reserve tank, so your earlier guess about the original gravity being reserved is still valid.
I guess so. And as we mentioned earlier, Gauntlet can't hold a suit, so just in case anybody was wondering about that.
Yeah, I was about to say, we finally see a bit of route divergence since Nice has actually checked Gauntlet, and I think none of the other runners has done that yet. And I didn't really catch what Oats did uncover as the reserve tank item.
To be honest, I didn't see it either. My assumption would be nothing overly important because chat hasn't gone crazy yet, so... Okay, it was an E-tank. Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'm quite sure we won't see Oats taking the detour to pick up that E-tank, and I expect Sloaters to also pass on that one. And in the meantime, we can see Zarby fighting Botwoon, while Nice is going to the wrecked ship.
This seed's been pretty healthy, on the supers, so I haven't seen anybody get to Botwoon yet with any kind of real, legitimate danger of soft locking. So let's find out what's at Gravity. What's your guess, Bender?
I'm not sure. I'm going out on a limb and say Charge Beam.
Oh, baby. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Varia, which means that at this point, Oats is the first person with it. Sloaters will be shortly thereafter, but Oats, I would assume, is now just going to beeline it straight down to Ridley and hope to either find Charge along the way or maybe pick up a few extra miners. So let's see how this plays out.
I'm not exactly sure how many supers Oats has, but it looks to be a 55 to me. And I presume his regular missiles are... I'm not sure, 15 maybe? But it is like not... 15. Yeah, it's certainly not far off from the magic numbers. For those that do not have that memorized by now, you want as a minimum to finish the game where you have no leeway to miss a single shot, 30 regular missiles and 60 supers. And in this case, you have to go and break Mother Brain's E-tank, go back and refill the missiles, and then you still cannot miss a single shot. But that is the absolute minimum you want, and Oats is pretty close to that, and he's going to pass along a number of minor items, and Sloaters doesn't really have that much less ammo either. So I presume we will see Oats checking minor item locations along the way, in case he does not find Charge, because if he has at least 36 regular missiles and 60 supers, he can, without missing a single shot, kill Mother Brain without going back and refilling. And since you can't have 36 supers as a maximum, but only 40, or too little, this means he could miss 4 regular missiles. But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but at the level Oats and also probably Sloaters are playing at, if they have 4 missiles of leeway and maybe 5 super missiles, an additional pack, they should be totally fine doing another breakaway.
This is very interesting. Oats has gone into the X-ray location to try and check X-ray without any of the sort of progression items. He's managed to get up there. Sloaters is very low on health. Needs to be careful. To put, space jump. That'll make getting out easier, and that will also help pretty significantly in lower Norfair. But to the point that Bender was just making, and I'm not trying to negatively impact any runner, but I've noticed lately, literally, the last 3 times that I've pointed out a potentially negative situation, it's actually happened. I'm not familiar exactly with how many randomizers Oats has played, but if you go in to Tourian without Charge Beam, sometimes it can be a little bit more tricky than you think. There's a lot of times where people in their first, few randomizers back in a while make some mistakes with the minor items if it comes to that. So if we don't find charge in lower Norfair and they choose to not look for it anywhere, it'll be interesting to see how each player manages their minor items leading up to Mother Brain. Clearly, I do not want to see any player make a mistake like that and change the game, but the simple reality is that it can and has happened to people, so we'll just have to wait and see.
And since oatsngoats decided to check the X-ray location, he has, for the time being, lost quite a bit of time relative to sloaters, who spared himself the time expense of checking X-ray and is now ahead by a bit. And the question is now whether Oats is going to make up that time over the course of the lower Norfair section and will be able to overtake sloaters. So I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure if picking up X-ray is going to pay off for Oats, but one part where that might easily happen is what we see now, because sloaters has to do either a gravity jump, which I think we're going to see now, and which he is probably going to get, but Oats can just... Oh no, he doesn't get it. So slight time loss for sloaters here. And as you can see, Oats can just, since he also has gravity, space jump up. And at this point, Oats has overtaken sloaters.
That's sync.
So...
Oh baby, this is starting to get good. So I've got a question for chat. In particular, obviously I think it depends on what kind of runner you are and what your comfort level is, but especially for some of you top runners out there, given the fact that they have the exact same items except for Sloaters has Screwattack, whereas Oats has Space Jump, which of the 2 items would you prefer to have in lower Norfair? I would probably prefer Screwattack, but that's just because to me it basically makes everything a non-decision. You basically just destroy everything and run straight through. But I wonder if some of the higher better runners would prefer to have Space Jump.
I know I certainly would prefer Screwattack, because otherwise I would just die. Since I don't really play that game at all, I'd have no chance in hell.
Chat, everybody said Space Jump just as Sloaters was making a ginormous easier time getting through that room, knocking over the pirates, but it also looks like Oats decided to go up to Mickey Mouse and grab the miner up there. But Sloaters has taken a lead in terms of physical location on the map, so let's see.
Yeah, it's just as I predicted that oatsngoats is trying to fill up his miners along the way, because he really does not want to run into the problem of not having charge and maybe having to make a detour through Gauntlet or something.
And as we see, Sloaters just absolutely mowing through every single thing very easily. He's going to check this minor item at the Power Bombs of Shame. He's going to be very, very happy to find some super missiles. And now he's going to head down. One thing that I have not brought up, and I'm so glad I get a chance to say it now, it's one of my favorite things to talk about every time. Grapple Beam. Grapple Beam, my favorite time to have Grapple Beam is in lower Norfair to farm up quickly. Neither runner will have that, but they're going to probably want, obviously to have at least 30 supers going into this fight, because they could potentially soft lock, although unlikely given the fact that it really does take damage from power bombs. But if Sloaters wants to farm a little bit before heading in there, he's not going to be able to use, Grapple Beam. He'll just have to kind of jump and shoot him. So that is one way that some time will be taken up, but it's the same because Oats does not have it as well.
Yeah, the question is if we are going to see Sloaters farm that much, because he has 30 supers, and he probably wants to have a bit of leeway because he's also low on power bombs and regular missiles. But on the other hand, he's certainly going to make a detour to the ship before going to Tourian just to fill up his various ammunition. But yeah, he also does not have Ice Beam enabled, which makes farming slightly faster. And he's deciding to face Ridley with, I think, 35 supers, 10 missiles, and 6 power bombs, while Oats is fighting Ridley with, certainly enough supers.
Yeah, Oats had more going into the fight prior. Sloaters had to take a minute to farm some supers back up just to be careful. I certainly don't blame him for that. It's easy to miss some supers, period. And also, one thing I think a lot of people forget about is the fact that they're not playing under normal circumstances. It's one thing to be playing just like on stream with, some people watching or something like that. It's another thing to be in a tournament, knowing you're up against another player and have hundreds of people watching. And in particular, in Sloater's case, I mean, he's literally playing against one of the best players in the world. So certainly don't blame him for wanting to farm up to be a little bit safe there.
And oatsngoats is actually picking up Plasma Beam after Ridley. Probably in the hopes of still finding charge, because that late in the game, Plasma Beam is of limited use. It's certainly useful for getting out of lower Norfair, for example for the key hunters, which you can actually decently damage if you have regular Plasma Beam. But
ironically, it helps Oats more than Sloaters here, because having the plasma to be able to clip through things is going to be, he didn't have that before. It'll make things easier, whereas Sloaters could have just basically Screwattack through everything. So a little bit of an edge in terms of that item's usefulness goes to Oats. Real quick, certainly. I'd like to point out I am Burrs or Beers. I'm sorry, I'm really bad about pronunciations, but thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime to the Speed Gaming channel. Everyone definitely appreciates that, especially Feasel. Thank you for the support.
Yeah, and since we have been focusing on Sloaters and oatsngoats so much, I think we have lost track about Nice and Zarby for a bit. And Zarby is, as it seems, trying to ice clip into Shacktool's hut, trying to check the original Springball location.
Hi.
And I'm not really sure which of those two runners is currently in a better shape. Zarby did check the Maridia sandpit and has the Screwattack, but in terms of bosses, Nice that seems to not have killed Draygon yet, and Zarby still has to go to wrecked ship. And Nice is also going to check the waterway at this very moment, and we only see an E-tank. So
it's interesting.
Nothing lost for the other runners.
Yeah, this is really interesting because the two runners that are in the a little bit slower of a race are checking some items so we can see what is there. But it looks like Sloaters and Oats are not going to find charge unless they decide for some reason to backtrack, which I highly doubt. At this point, we are going to get to see how each player manages the minor item counts heading into Tourian, which take speed completely away from it. If either one of them manages to mismanage, if either one mismanages their minor item count in Tourian, that could literally be the difference between winning and losing. So we've got an incredibly interesting final segment coming up here between those two.
Yeah, and given that we're talking about Tourian and they both have more super missiles than they need. Oats seems really well equipped. I think Sloaters has 65 supers and 10 normal missiles, and Oats seems to have 75 supers and 20 normal missiles, which should be enough, with a bit to spare. It might, for Sloaters currently, come down to maybe drop luck from the Metroids, and that would really be heartbreaking.
Oh man, yeah, this is going to be quite interesting. Sloaters currently definitely has enough. He's got 10, I think, regular missiles. He can break the glass with 6. He can fire. Okay, somebody in chat will have to help me with this, because I believe that if you break the glass and then just fire 10 straight supers into Mother Brain 1, that's 3,000 damage, but that actually won't kill her. And I'm not 100% sure why it works that way, but I've noticed that you need to fire at least some regular missiles. I wonder if 3 regular missiles plus 9 supers would be enough.
I was just seeing something on Oats, and it boggles my mind a bit, because Oats has gone back to the Norfair reserve, that he has picked up X-ray. And I wonder why, because at this point in the game he really has no use for X-ray at all. He doesn't have charge beam, and there is no enemy that could still be microwaved, and there is also no traditional use for X-ray in revealing hidden items.
Interesting. Well, Sloaters is making his way up. Looks like Oats is actually going to be behind him. I don't know exactly, if Sloaters is going to want any leeway. A lot of times players will try to get a couple extra packs just in case, because, and I've actually had to do this in one of my runs. Like, I've gone into the Mother Brain 1 room with exactly, literally enough missiles and super missiles for Mother Brain 1 and 2. And even though you can pull it off, it's just incredibly easy to accidentally miss one shot. So I wouldn't blame either of them for checking some other locations, but perhaps Sloaters will opt to go Gauntlet and get the 2 miners over there on the way in. We'll just have to wait and see.
I was about to mention that Sloaters still has the option to check Gauntlet and hope that not both items are power bombs, which wouldn't help him at all, but which is also unlikely. And yeah, it's really, really easy if you are not allowed to miss a single shot to get soft locked at Mother Brain, because not only can your regular missiles or your shots at the original Mother Brain 1 in her or its glass tank be just sniped by the turrets, you also have to be really careful with Mother Brain 2, because sometimes she moves her head, and if you weren't paying close attention and reacting fast, you're just going to miss a super, and that means you have to reset and do it all over again.
Exactly. You basically have 2 options if you know you have to hit every shot. You either A, have to, kind of risk it for the biscuit and hope to go as fast as possible but have an increased likelihood of missing, or you end up having to go slower just to make sure all your shots hit. But interestingly enough, I don't know if anybody else saw this, but Sloaters actually opted to save. A lot of times people will go into the ship, but then once it asks if you want to save, they'll press B, and you'll pop right out. Like Oats just did exactly what I'm talking about. Sloaters opted to save, which takes another, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds. So if this ended up being a 5 or 10 second difference, that would be interesting. Or even further, if somehow both players made a mistake and screwed up their count somehow, then Sloaters would be able to restart right outside of Tourian, whereas Oats, I guess, would have to start over, or at least from a much earlier time.
I think the reason Sloaters saved at the ship exactly at this point in the run is because... oh no, sorry, that was a Fico, because he is not really interested in the major item, and if he actually makes it through Gauntlet, he has no reason to actually reset. But when people early in the run check Gauntlet, you often see them save before entering Gauntlet, not just because the risk of dying, but also because if the item in Gauntlet turns out to be practically useless, it's often more beneficial to reset instead of having to make your way through the entire Gauntlet or back out.
I'm not 100% sure why Sloaters elected to save again here, but he saved for a second time in Tourian. So at this point, literally, like when they entered Tourian, the only time difference between the two was that save at the ship that Sloaters elected to do and Oats did not. But now Sloaters is, kind of significantly more behind than he was earlier. Oats making his way to the baby room, and Sloaters still has 2 more Metroid rooms to go. So we'll have to see how this turns out. Sloaters looks like he's aware that he needs to start using regular missiles because so far he hasn't had the drops to get to full 70 supers, and that's exactly what he wants. He can definitely refill his regulars, but he can't refill supers once he's past this Metroid here. Okay, he's back to full.
Yeah, wonderful drops. He's back at full ammo. And Oats, in the meantime, is trying to skip the baby, and he gets it. Oats being slightly in the lead at this point, and with both runners basically having the same equipment, having just regular ammo for Mother Brain and no charge beam.
You would have to... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bender.
Yeah, Oats certainly is in a position to be able to win this out of his own devices. And he also has the advantage of not having Screwattack enabled, which makes the Zabitite skip that he just performed a lot easier. So at this point, it's basically the question whether Oats makes a mistake. If he does not, I think Sloaters will not be able to catch up.
Yeah, Sloaters, I think already removed Screwattack when he entered the elevator. I could be wrong about that, but Oats has so many supers. Like I think you need 60 to win this fight against Mother Brain 2, and I think he started the fight with like 70 something. So it would basically be impossible for him to mess up the ammo here. So my assumption would be, based on everything we've seen, that Oats is in a very, very commanding position at this point.
Yeah, Oats certainly has enough ammunition to finish this fight with ease and lots of ammo to spare. And Sloaters is just now entering Mother Brain's room. And in the meantime, Oats is enjoying his fruit salad beam. We won't see the stand-up glitch from any of the runners here, I presume, since it's just the risk's not worth it because neither of those has charge beam, and neither of those will have any ammunition left after Mother Brain's rainbow beam. So it's just a useless risk, and so we don't see Oats trying to do the stand-up.
Yeah, again, it's kind of like a sporting event where it's really hard to say that only one decision is the game deciding factor, whereas there are many different things that can happen over the course of any kind of game to sway the result. But I think somebody in chat was mentioning the decision to get Screwattack and check Sandpit. I don't necessarily think that's the main factor here that might have caused Sloaters to get behind, because he was able to use Screwattack in Lower Norfair to move pretty quickly. I think there were some other things though along the way, like the 2 saves, and then just kind of generally moving slightly slower through Tourian, because let's keep it honest, Oats is one of the best in the world, so that's probably going to be a position he'll have a little bit of edge in. But overall, I mean, Oats and Sloaters both had a very, very good run here. Looking at just a barely slightly over hour pace. That's pretty. I think that's a really solid for a randomizer that gives you one of the suits so late in the game.
Yeah, and I agree. It's not as easy as pointing to a single decision that was made during the course of a run for and blaming the outcome on it. Because a lot of those decisions, like as you mentioned, checking Sandpit, you can't just say you can't just see it from the retrospective position and say, yeah, it turned out to not be worth it, because at the point the runners decide to actually check something like Waterway or the Maridia Sandpit, or any major item that is a bit out of the way, like X-ray. X-ray would be another example. At this point, when they do it, it's always a slight gamble, because it might be an important item, and none of the runners has the hindsight of knowing what item they will get and how useful it will be. So, yeah, we've seen that gambles can pay off. I remember seeing a run of oatsngoats where he went to great lengths to check X-ray early, and it paid off huge for him. And we've seen other runs where people checked X-ray early and all they got was a reserve tank. So, yeah, with the benefit of hindsight, you can call any decision good or bad.
Well, GG to Oats, the first
Indeed.
of the 4 to finish. Congratulations to him. And Sloaters should be right behind him. I would like to point out, as we discussed before this race, Oats is clearly one of the top Super Metroid players in the world. But I am really glad, win or lose, that Sloaters was able to showcase his skills, because Sloaters is really a very, very strong runner of this game. And I think for him to go toe-to-toe with Oats says a lot about his skill level.
Yeah, and it certainly says a lot about how interesting the second race between these two is going to be, because it's in no way decided that this match is going to be ended after 2 rounds. From what we've seen, if we imagine a slight route divergence, they basically have taken for the most part the same route, and Sloaters didn't lose much time in general to Oats. So with a slight route divergence and a bit of a better gamble by Sloaters, this might easily go 1-1, and then hell knows what the third match is going to bring.
That's exactly right. And GG to Sloaters, finishing up just about maybe a minute and 15 seconds or so slower than Oats, but GG to him. And
GG indeed.
I just noticed something kind of interesting. If you look up at Nice and Zarby, one of them has Space Jump, one of them has Screwattack, but not both. So, and it's the same side too. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it looks to me at the moment, I could be wrong here because their pathing is different, but it looks like Nice has a pretty clear advantage, given the fact that Zarby will have to make his way all the way back down to lower Norfair and then path all the way back up to Tourian. So that would be my assumption, is that Nice is in the lead at the moment.
I agree with that. Nice is in a nice position, because after exiting lower Norfair, he can just basically do a little detour to Draygon on his way to G4, and he should be fine. I'm just not sure how many super missiles he has, but it should be 75, yeah, and
So
30
wait a minute.
normals.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah, so if Nice is actually going to make his detour through Maridia, he doesn't have to worry about not finding charge beam, because he's already equipped to beat the game.
So I just remembered something. Is Plasma literally the only item that we haven't checked yet, or did Zarby ever actually get into where Spring Ball is located? Because I was paying attention to Oats and Sloaters match at that point, but nobody has charge yet. Is Plasma the only spot left to check that could have it?
He did not check Shack Tool.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, so that leaves, I think that should only leave Shack Tool and Plasma. And both are locations that are commonly skipped by runners, because they are, well, Shack Tool is obviously quite a bit out of the way, and you have the special Shack Tool penalty of watching him dig his way through the enemy destructible blocks. But Plasma Beam is also often skipped since the detour to the room with the upper toilet entrance is also slightly out of the way.
True. And you know what? I just brain farted for a moment. I was sitting here going like, man, I don't know exactly where it would be. And everybody in chat's like, it's definitely at Spring Ball. And I'm like, how do they all know? Well, it's in the credits. I forgot that the credits show us where the items are now.
Yeah. Once again, chat is the best commentator.
Exactly. Well, now we can focus on the Neis and Zarby matchup. As we mentioned earlier, looks like each player only has one boss left, but Zarby pretty significantly behind in terms of routing at the moment. About to find Varia at the gravity suit location, but then after that we'll have to path all the way back down to Lower Norfair, whereas honestly by the time he even gets to Lower Norfair, I would assume Neis would be done with Draygon and headed back out to the ship. So looks like Neis already has plenty of minor items to handle Tourian, so we'll just have to kind of wait and see how that develops.
And to add insult to injury, Neis is also saving before going up to Botwoon. So even if he makes major mistakes, and given the amount of health he has, he would need to be quite a major mistake. He wouldn't even be thrown back by a lot. And he is also quite collective in terms of ammo, and if I see that correctly, he has now 40 normal missiles and 85 supers. So yeah, he could have a beer or two, miss quite a lot of shots on Mother Brain, and still finish with ammo to spare.
Just to give a quick heads up to everybody, and then Bender, I'll let you explain the Botwoon stuff here. Keep in mind that Oats and Sloaters will have their next round here in just a moment. We'll probably finish up the Neis Zarby matchup before the second match begins. So we'll have two new commentators, Pomp and Stump, come in for those.
Yeah, and if you are afraid that you might lose out on this crappy German accent, don't worry. Punk is German too, and if you think that, well, maybe after this match you get rid of those pesky Germans commentating these matches, I'm sorry, they won't. We're here to stay.
I can't speak for the Southern accent because I'm not exactly sure where everybody's from, so this might be the last time y'all have to deal with this today.
Yeah, but in any case, stay tuned, because the second match between oatsngoats and sloaters is certainly promising to be as tense as the first one. And as you predicted, Zarby hasn't even arrived in Lower Norfair, while Neis is already in Draygon's boss room.
Do you see what Fiesel's saying in chat right now, Bender? He's saying he wants a Southern-only commentary team and then a German-only commentary team. They're trying to rip us apart, man.
Yeah,
they don't want us to be together. I just don't understand what the problem is. So one thing to note about the Draygon fight in this particular randomizer is that, you know, especially in regular any %, you'll notice a lot of people try to start off with an X Factor, but they don't have that option in this particular seed because they have wave, but they do not have charge. So a lot of times you'll see this fight take an extra round or two, depending on how crisp and clean these sparks are.
And it might come down to Zarby just entering lower Norfair. At the same time, Nice is going to kill Draygon, because they're both pretty close to either event, to making either event happen. And Nice is killing Draygon.
I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and if anybody disagrees with me, then, you know, no problem. But I would have to say that Oats playing Shaq Fu, surrounded by other Super Metroid streams, is probably the most stark contrast in video gaming that I have ever seen on one screen at the same time. We have potentially one of the worst games ever made, right alongside what I believe, and many other people might choose to think, is, if not the best, one of the top games ever created. Very interesting contrast going on. This reminds me of like Reservoir Dogs, having the Stuck in the Middle with You song playing during the torture scene. It's just a very interesting thing to behold.
Yeah, can certainly agree. Not just because I'm a fan of the game Super Metroid, but Super Metroid is also holding up quite well in terms of how it has been engineered. Because in many cases you see games that are broken to the point where you skip large parts of it or complete them in an incorrect order. You can often see how they don't handle it that well and glitch out spectacularly. But all in all, Super Metroid really doesn't do that. There's things you can abuse. You can get out of bounds in this game if you really try to, and you can do things like microwaving bosses, because the programmers probably did not put much thought into what would happen if you have but plasma in charge way too early. But even if you do RBO, which is basically playing the game backwards for the most part, you don't run into any big glitches or big programming errors. It actually works out quite fine.
So it looks like Nice has made his way to the ship for a really nice refill here. Again, like, this might be the single healthiest minor count that I've seen personally in a randomizer. So I can't imagine having too many issues in Tourian in terms of soft locking. So I'm sure at this point Nice will make his way down to Mother Brain and see if he can finish this thing out. Zarby's still making his way to Ridley. So we'll see that fight coming up shortly. I think the main question everybody wants to know from Oats at the moment is what control scheme he uses and why. For Shaq Fu, clearly. There's a lot of different ways to set up your control scheme, but everybody would like to know how he has it set up so they can imitate and try to reach that level of play.
Personally, my question would be, what kind of stuff Oats had in his breakfast to actually decide to play Shaq Fu? Because I can't imagine that you willfully do that without being intoxicated in some way.
So I've got a philosophical question for you, Bender. You've always struck me as a very intelligent, well-educated, thoughtful guy.
The answer is no, I am not.
Ponder on this one for a moment. You have two choices. You can either have a video game made about you that is very famous, that everybody knows, but it's a terrible, awful game, or no video game is ever made about you at all. Which would you choose?
Well, I think there is some kind of proverb that says better to be thought of as an idiot and stay silent than speak and remove all doubt. And in that fashion, I probably prefer to not have a video game made about me.
Not a bad choice at all.
What would your choice be?
I think, to be honest, I would be in the same boat as you. Simply having a video game made about me, but it to be bad for me would probably be unacceptable. So I think I would just elect to remain in obscurity.
And talking about obscure, one of the obscure tricks in Super Metroid is actually coming up for Nice. He at this point has a more than comfortable lead with Zarby still farming before entering Draygon, and Nice being about to try them baby skip. And that was really close. I would have expected the baby to grab him at that point, but he's still fighting the baby.
This is this is like a full court press baby skip.
And there the baby grabs him. And he, if I see this correctly, he is turning right, saving those 40 frames. Yes, he is. One of the meme things to do in this randomizer during this tournament, you should be facing right if you get grabbed by the baby, because for some reason the whole animation for sucking you down and leaving you out to dry is about 40 frames faster, and it is 2/3 of a second.
Yes, and Zarby now, in terms, we got 3 boss fights going on. We got Zarby trying to finish up the Ridley fight. Nice will be starting the Mother Brain 1 fight, and currently Oats is duking it out with Hobgoblin to see who the most elite superhero is.
Every second I watch Oats stream, I really regret not having a bottle of wine here to be able to drown the bad impressions I get from that stream in some kind of drug. But thankfully Oats has reset. Wonderful. And Nice is making his way to Mother Brain. With 40 normal missiles and 83 supers, he should be absolutely safe.
Yeah, there'd have to be a lot of Kojak supers here for this to fail, so I don't anticipate. I mean, what, he's got 23 extra supers that I can't fathom a situation where 23 supers are missed, so this is probably going to get wrapped up here shortly.
I'm not even sure if any intoxicating substance would be showing its results quick enough that it could be used to make him with 23 supers at this point. So yeah, that Mother Brain fight should be an absolutely safe bet, and it should just come down to Nice finishing his run with the amount of energy he has, and he has high jump and space jump and speed booster. I doubt anything will be able to come up to actually take the win from his hands at this point.
Agreed. And at this point, I'd also like to point out, give a little shout out to Cheaty Face 4. Cheaty Face has been our tracker for these 4 matches. It's incredibly difficult to track even just a regular matchup between 2 players, but to do so with 4, Much love to Cheaty, always doing an excellent job all tournament long. Thank you so much for your service, and thank you to all of the trackers out there. They're sort of the unsung heroes of this tournament.
I absolutely agree. Those trackers just don't get enough love. And you don't see them do their work, but yeah, they're basically doing the magic with the item screens you see. And in case of Cheaty Face, really follow him. He actually does play Super Metroid a lot. So if you're here because you want to see Super Metroid, follow Cheaty Face.
Oh, and apparently Helio Dixie, I believe, was tracking the other one. Sorry about that. But either way, yeah, all the trackers, thank y'all so much for all the work that you guys have been doing all tournament long. It's super great to have people support the whole experience, and we definitely couldn't do that without you guys.
Yeah, and at this point also, greetings from me to Helio. He also does run Super Metroid. Did a good job trying to beat Desirect, but is unfortunately out of the tournament at this point. But still a good Super Metroid runner, still give him a follow.
Okay, and now the baby Metroid has met its demise, scaring Shaggy and Scooby into running away. And now, Mother Brain 3 will get to experience the Rainbow Beam of Rage. Looks like Nice is going to be wrapping this up, and we'll secure a 2-0 victory versus Zarby. Even though it's going to be a couple minutes away, I just really want to mention like players like Zarby. I don't know Zarby, but I think he is not a regular Super Metroid runner. I think he is kind of just in this tournament because he likes the randomizers and things like that. I think he might actually be more of a Link to the Past player or some other things. But I absolutely applaud him and any other person that elects to be in this tournament and experience the competition and just give all of us extra content to watch. So big props to him, even though he'll be making his exit from the tournament. Great to see a lot of different players running in this tournament.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I have a lot of respect for the not so good runners that are taking part in this tournament, because if you aren't really good, it takes a bit of courage to expose yourself and your play to that many viewers. And I'm also happy that the chat, in particular in these Super Metroid speed gaming tournament races, has so far been almost exclusively really supportive, even if runners clearly weren't up to the standard that we are used from the top names in the business. So thumbs up to chat for that.
Absolutely, and you know, one thing to further kind of heap some praise on runners like Zarby and other people that have done the same thing he has done, this is not an easy game to run at all. The fact that they even learned some of these strats and you know, learned enough about the game to manage these randomizers is very impressive in my opinion. So props to him. But for now, we got to say GG to Nice. Congratulations on the victory and, you know, staying alive for one more round at least.
Yeah, unfortunately, since Nice and Zarby were doing a losers bracket match, this means that Zarby is going to be out of this tournament entirely. But yeah, still props to him for taking part and making it this far, which is not the smallest feat, actually.
Not at all. In fact, I think both players had to at least win, I believe, either 1 or 2 matches to even make it to this point. So props to both of them. Nice will move on. In fact, while we're getting ready to watch what Zarby will do at the end here, I would assume Zarby will finish the run. I'll double check on the bracket to see what will be next for Nice.
And at this point, Zarby also shouldn't have any problems finishing this game, having 30 normal missiles and 70 supers. He should have enough. enough ammo to be able to miss a shot or two without too much troubles. I'm not actually sure how the math for Mother Brain 1 in her glass tank, once the glass tank is broke, works. But there is also a convenient save station just before you enter the Mother Brain fight. So I think we're going to see this four-way race being wrapped up in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and to give everybody an update, looks like Nice will be moving on to face In No Rush in the losers bracket round number 3. In No Rush just came off of a very actually pretty close defeat against Fuzda, and everybody knows that Fuzda is one of our like really top tier runners. So he put on an excellent show. It'll be really great to see those two runners face each other. I keep mentioning this every time I do commentary, but you know, we're really getting to the point now in this tournament where basically every single player has a lot to offer and has a lot of skills, and so it's going to be really interesting to watch everybody match up against one another with their tournament lives on the line.
Yeah, and really, if I've seen an early race of In No Rush, and that guy is really quick, and just slightly losing to Fuzda means that Nice is going to have his work really cut out for him.
Yeah, absolutely. There's really, honestly, at this point, there's not a single tournament matchup that I don't have interest in watching. So since we're getting near the end, we always want to make a point to say thank you to Feasel and everybody else affiliated with the tournament for, you know, taking their time to set everything up. There has been just hours and hours of excellent content so far, and there will be many more hours of excellent content. So it's truly a great time to be a fan of Super Metroid.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Kip just said. Also from my side, thanks to Feasel. And really what he said about it being a great time to be a fan of Super Metroid. Yeah, you get almost every day of the week. You get wonderful randomizer races. For me, when I come home from work, which is rather late. If you're in the US, every afternoon. So yeah, it's wonderful. And Zarby did actually miss the baby skip, filling up on health and currently having the MAME super count of 69, but deciding to use a super to open the red door. And yeah, I hope he is not going to regret using his supers for these doors.
He's definitely got enough ammo to do everything he needs to do, but he doesn't have much leeway. It looks like he probably hasn't remembered yet to take off Screwattack. Yeah, there we go. So once again, he's going to need 6 missiles to break the glass, then he's going to need 3,000 damage, and then he'll need, what, 18,000, I believe, or for some reason my mind is blanking at the moment, but he's going to need basically the equivalent of 60 supers. I believe that's 18,000 damage.
Yeah, that should be correct. Mother Brain 2 and Ridley have the same amount of health. Ridley takes 30 supers because he takes double damage from supers. So
Great
that
point.
should be so I think the math is correct, and 60 supers should be it for Mother Brain 2.
You know, Bender, I'm glad you said that, because now I will probably never forget how much damage is needed, simply because I'll always equate it to Ridley, but then remembering that Ridley takes the double damage from supers, because, you know, like, I've run a lot of RBO, and that's something I had to make sure that I understood and memorized. So thank you for that little tidbit. Unfortunately, we're seeing Zarby actually miss some of these shots. This is making me a little bit nervous, to be totally honest.
Yeah, and I'm also not sure. It might be that. Oh yeah, he has 61 supers left for Mother Brain 2, so he can miss one. But it might be the case that Zarby was a bit laissez-faire with his missiles, or rather his supers, at this point, because he knows that he that his opponent already finished his match, and so if things don't work out, it's not like he would lose the match due to it. So if you know it's already decided, you can probably go a bit balls out and show that you can do it if you don't have too much pressure, at least.
That's true. I was just thinking sort of the competitive side of me, like even if I lost, I would want to finish the run. So it would be kind of frustrating to run out of ammo at that point. But it's good to see that he was able to hit all 60 with 1 to spare. And shortly here, after some of these cutscenes, he'll make his exit, and we'll have a GG.
Yeah, so in some ways, Zarby is really doing a great job in keeping us entertained and occupied, while all the other runners are, or Oats and Goats and Sloaters in this case, are getting ready for the second match, giving them some minutes to breathe and relax, while keeping us entertained with watching Mother Brain die once more, something you just can't get enough.
Amen to that.
And I have to say, since you don't see it a lot outside of randomizers, I really think it is certain kind of satisfying to see Mother Brain 2 being fought with basically just super missiles.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I've told this story, or I guess I've told this story probably on my stream, but I'm not sure if I've ever said it while doing commentary, but this game came out when I was about maybe like 10 or 11. And of course I played it immediately. And I remember I actually beat it for the first time the night that my brother graduated from high school. And I actually did not know that I could use charge shot to kill her. And so the only thing I remember doing is firing all the missiles and super missiles that I had, and apparently it was enough. So I didn't learn until I started speedrunning this game later in life that you actually could hit her with a charge.
That's interesting. But please tell me if that's maybe a bit too personal. But at the age of 11, if you saw the Mother Brain fight, what was your reaction to that? I think at that age I probably would have been maybe not scared to death, but certainly a bit frightened, because the way all the atmosphere is produced, I think in Super Metroid is quite effective.
Yeah, actually, I think my experience is going to be maybe a little bit unique for a lot of other people because I'm a little bit older. I had actually, like, you're probably about to get a longer answer than you wanted for this, Bender, but basically I'm the youngest out of 4. And so my 2 older brothers were 9 and 7 years older than me. And so when I grew up, I was watching them play video games, and that's how I learned. So I actually beat the original Metroid on NES, which we owned in our family, when I was like maybe 7 or 8. And, you know, that game is not easy, but I remember watching my brothers do it. So I had a Game Boy, you know, within like the next year or 2, and I got Metroid 2 and was able to beat it. And so I remembered, you know, the baby Metroid. And so my first experience with Super Metroid was really neat because I knew the storyline and like recognized that I was in Mother Brain's room at the beginning. And when I saw the baby Metroid at the end, I was like, you know, really excited. But in terms of how I felt about the Mother Brain fight, to me, the most sinister and kind of, you know, creepy part of it is I think they did an absolutely excellent job of setting the tone for the fight with the music. The music is very terrifying in a very kind of unique way that you don't see in a lot of other games. And that definitely creeped me out a bit, but I think I was just more mesmerized when the baby Metroid came in to save me, and it was just kind of like all the stories lining up at the same time.
Yeah, and I guess you... I certainly, when I first played through this game, GG to Sloaters, who just finished his game. I certainly was a bit heartbroken, would be too much, but I thought it was a nice touching end when Mother Brain actually killed the baby Metroid, because yeah, we all know the storyline, and it's basically like losing a friend and companion at this point.
Absolutely. So yeah, GG there to Zarby89. Once again, I just want to say officially, Zarby, congratulations on an excellent showcase and performance throughout the tournament. You are more than welcome anytime to come back and participate in any of our events. We had a pleasure watching your runs.
And thanks to Chad for pointing out that I actually read the wrong name, the one under the active stream. It was, of course, Zarby finishing his game, not Sloaters. So GG to Zarby.
But ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we're going to take a little bit of a break here and let Ponk and Stump come in for the next round between Sloaters and oatsngoats. I'm not sure if we will have another race combination with them or not, but thank y'all so much. It was a pleasure doing commentary again today. Hope you enjoyed it. Bender, thanks for being my co-commentator, man. It was always fun to get to chat with you.
Yeah, I can just give all those compliments back. I'm certainly looking forward to, if we get the opinion, to commentate another match together. And yeah, I will also sign off, as Kip said. 2 other people will take over for us, and you will get your prescribed German accent. And yeah, everybody have a wonderful evening. See you guys.
Good night, everybody. You guys take it easy, and look forward to Ponk and Stump commentary in just a moment.
Thanks, Bender. Thanks, Kip, for the wonderful transition. And what's up, chat? Welcome to round 2 of oatsngoats versus Sloaters 27. My name's Pong, and with me here is the best co-commentator one could ever have, Stump. How's it going, dude? All right. Well, looks like Stump is not